Loke. Void.
Just going to start with that, so in case anybody gets mad at how I say Grasp of Loke, you can take it up with Albrecht. I didn't make the word up, okay? Alright, cool. I've been very excited for this for the last couple of weeks because Xaku is one of my favorite Warframes. This dude is so fun and so strong, and I have a feeling he's been a bit of a sleeper, not because people don't understand what he can do necessarily, but just because the farm for normal Xaku is a real pain in the ass. It's probably, I would say, even worse than trying to get Caliban because you have to get rare parts from all three open world areas. Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter because this is Xaku Prime, which this is probably one of the very rare cases where a Prime Warframe is actually easier to get even through farming in-game than for getting the standard version of the Warframe, which is kind of funny, but also kind of nice too, since this is obviously the better version of Xaku. I have a couple of different builds to show you, technically three, but the first two are pretty much the same, just with one ability swapped out, and a third one utilizing Golden Instinct. I'll talk about that one once we get to it. We'll go over Xaku just a little bit because since he is a lesser used Warframe, you might not know everything that's going on with him here. The passive that he has is actually very important to his survivability. The damage reduction on AoE attacks is nice in theory, but unless you're playing in normal Star Chart missions, it really doesn't matter. It is also the 25% chance to avoid incoming weapon damage that's very important, that pairs with his 4. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Normally, we would be looking at Zada's Whisper on his first ability. I'm not going to go too in-depth on this one, not because there isn't a lot to talk about, but because all of the insane interactions that Zada's Whisper has are actually on other Warframes combining with other abilities. There's certain helmet abilities you can put on Xaku to pair with Zada to get some of those crazy interactions going on. For the most part, Zada's Whisper is better on other Warframes. It's just easier to slot that in as his helmet ability, and now that Xaku Prime is around, maybe you'll get to mess around with those more. It'd be easier to throw your old Xaku to the wall to be eaten, and then you can start messing with that now that you don't have to go through the insane grind of getting another Xaku Warframe for sacrificing. So Zada gives you void damage, which is the only way you can get void damage on your normal weapons. Otherwise, void damage is exclusive to operators. And it also includes status chance for the void damage based on whatever weapon it's applied to. And void status is very nice because it applies a bullet attractor to enemies when the status effect activates. Not only does this make it a little bit easier for you to shoot targets, which doesn't really matter that much, it's mainly good because the bullet attractor will automatically grab projectiles fired by enemies. That helps a lot with survivability on Xaku, although the thing is, if you're going to do that, you need to be spraying bullets basically everywhere with a very high status weapon, which is possible. That's part of what the second build is. We'll get to that when we get to it. Zada's Whisper is cool. It's not really broken on Xaku without pairing it with other helmet abilities. That's why I'm not super crazy about it on him, but it's still good. Grasp of Loke, on the other hand, this is where things get crazy. You are able to grab weapons from enemies and use them as your own. You just pull enemy weapons into you based on the radius of the ability, and then they just follow you around like a whole squad of auto turrets just shooting anything that gets near you. The base range of this ability is super low, which is why this build uses absolute maximum range. And even with max range on this, we're still looking at an attack range of 22.4 meters. I know it doesn't look super impressive at first because of the damage, but the thing is, that is the base damage, and since we are stealing enemy weapons, stealing weapons augments that damage. Basically, the 69.5 you see on the card there is base damage, which then gets enhanced by the enemy weapons that you steal. So this is actually a damage scaling ability. The stronger the enemies are, the stronger their weapons are, and when you steal those weapons, it is going to massively increase Grasp of Loke's damage, which is super cool. The Lost is a triple ability, and this really truly is 3 separate abilities in one. So Xaku technically is a Warframe that has 6 abilities at base. Although the thing is, one of these really isn't worth using. The other 2 are more so. One in particular that we really want is Gaze, because this is armor stripping. Actually, defense reduction, but, the main thing everyone always worries about is armor stripping. Gaze, you have to pick a target, you lock them in place, and it creates a radius around them where it will remove enemy defenses when they are within that radius. That is super nice, and what's even better is that you can have two of those active at once. You can use Gaze on two different enemies, and you can have two separate 70-meter radius bubbles that will just remove defenses from targets, which is super useful because void damage from Grasp of Loke does not actually have any sort of enhancements against enemies. Like, the enemies are not vulnerable to void damage. It's kind of just meant to be a neutral damage type, save for sentience, for obvious reasons. So getting rid of armor on Grineer makes Grasp of Loke do way more damage, and it's super nice to have. This is also very easy to use. To just pick a target, boom, hit them, they're locked in place. So even though it is a stationary ability, it's very easy to just jump into the next group of enemies if you're moving through a mission, hit one, watch your guns kill the rest of them for you, and game over, you win. The other one that's cool is Accuse. You are capable of basically... It's more or less the Enthrall ability that Revenant has, except it's a little bit more useful. They actually do turn to allies for you. You can't damage them. It's good and bad. There's a max target limit on that, which does help keep from just mind controlling an entire group of enemies and then not being able to kill them. And then the other one is Deny, where you just fire a giant beam of void energy in front of you, which looks cool, of course, but it doesn't have enough damage to be useful past normal star chart missions. In Steel Path, it's basically useless, and you might as well forget that it's even there. The Vast Untime is where things start to get even more interesting on Xaku, and this is where you can actually make your abilities be super useful without having to have super high duration. When you activate the Vast Untime, all of the durations of Xaku's abilities are paused where they are at. So you can have your Grasp of Loke active almost indefinitely. Almost, like, is a caveat, and I'll explain that in a second. The other useful thing about this ability for general use is you get a 75% dodge chance. You have 75% chance of just avoiding enemy damage when you are attacked while the Vast Untime is active. Anything that is, go along the same path as this, like, Xaku's passive to just avoid incoming damage, these add together in the same way that you would add damage resistances together. So this does not mean that Xaku is just completely immune to damage. As cool as that would be, it would also be actually broken. Not like, super powerful and then we just call it broken because that's what we do with Warframes nowadays. That would be actually broken because he would just be literally invincible to all enemy damage. It's actually something like 82 or 83% dodge chance just with the Vast Untime and his passive active, which is still great. But that also means that you have, above a 10% chance of taking damage. And when you're dealing with Steel Path enemies, you only have to get shot once or twice to lose your shields, especially in the build like this where we aren't actually augmenting our shields. That's why we have Condemn on here. Very simple. We are avoiding most damage. The damage that we don't avoid, we're going to have to find a way to deal with it. So why not just use Condemn? With a max range build, you can throw Condemn once in just the general direction of enemies, and you will hit a bunch of them and gain max overshield pretty much every single time. Max overshield on Xaku without augmenting your shields will go up above the max amount of shields that you need to reach the 2.5 second invulnerability shield gate. So you don't even have to mod for shields at all. You can just use Condemn to get your overshields up as far as Condemn will go, and every time you max it out, you will have that 2.5 second shield gate, which makes it very easy to then just cast Condemn again, and you're not even guaranteed to take damage as soon as the shield gate goes away because you have a very high dodge chance on Xaku. So high dodge chance, you can lock enemies in place, which is helpful, have constant shield gating, and then have a super powerful ability that just follows you around and kills everything for you. And armor stripping. I mean, come on. Xaku is crazy, and he's been crazy for a while. It's just now a lot more people are going to be able to access him, I think. And I really hope that means that he's going to just stay this way since he hasn't been changed in such a long time, because as it is, Xaku is so fun and so good. It's wonderful. So now let's actually look at the mods that we got going on here. Like I said, we have to build for max range because the actual range of Grasp of Loke's attack is very short on its own. Max range only gets us up to 22 meters. Granted, if it was super high, it could actually make some missions very annoying where you actually want to try and get to certain targets and they would just die before you get to them. So it's not the worst, but it does kind of limit our build somewhat since we have to build for max range. That means overextended, that means stretch, that means auger reach, and that means cunning drift. That's your max range for any Warframe. Aside from that, we want some amount of power strength on here because using Gaze on the Lost has defense reduction, and that is based on power strength like it is on basically every other Warframe. We need to get it to 100%. Well, okay, we don't need to, but we're going to. Plus, power strength is going to enhance the base damage of Grasp of Loke, which is just going to make everything stronger. Base damage then enhanced by enemy weapons just means this thing is going to do super high damage and just keep going up and up and up over time. Now, aside from that, we have some weird things going on here. We have one weird thing, actually. Everything else is pretty normal. We got power strength dumped in here to get up to a decent amount. Bolt Augmented is going to get us up above that 100% mark for Gaze, so we can have full armor stripping. I've got Equilibrium on here for a decent amount of energy recovery. We're running just base 100% efficiency, and we don't have to worry about casting most abilities repeatedly since they are going to be paused by the Vast Untime, so we just need to basically cast Untime, cast your 4 every 36 seconds. If you can't get 100 energy in 36 seconds, you're doing something wrong, or you're doing a mission where you're not killing things. And Equilibrium is just there because that makes it so that you're always going to be full on energy, which is useful since obviously if you're moving around in the mission, you're going to want to cast Gaze repeatedly to keep armor stripping enemies, and you're going to want to always have energy on hand for Condemned to keep yourself alive. It's all pretty straightforward since we're running around looking for enemies, and Xaku's already polarized for it. I just threw enemy radar on here, but you could do whatever you want. If you wanted to go for a lower power strength build, you could use Corrosive Projection to make up for the difference for Gaze. Totally fine. The other arcane, it's kind of just whatever. I couldn't think of anything that actually fit in for his abilities specifically to make them better. He doesn't really need survivability. I thought about using Arcane Aegis or Arcane Barrier. You certainly can, but it doesn't feel necessary if you're using Condemn to boost your shields, and it works so well with max range. Other things that should boost abilities, if you wanted to use even more power strength, you certainly could, but it's kind of redundant at some point. So pretty much whatever you want to put in here that feels good, you could always drop Equilibrium and put something else in this spot instead and use Arcane Energize, since lots of people have that. It's up to you. You can flex this part pretty much any direction you want to. All right, let's talk about the weird thing on this build that I know some of you have been staring at. Why is this here? We're worrying about shields. Yeah, this is not here because of the armor and health increases. This is here for the set bonus, which never ever gets used, understandably so. Carnus Carapace, specifically the Carapace mod set, is a 3-piece set that you get from Deimos. And as you can see here, when you get a heavy attack kill with which is a melee weapon, it reduces enemy accuracy against your Warframe by 30% and gives you status immunity. To be fair to myself, I put Arcane Ice on here before I decided that I was going to use this mod set. I don't really know what I want to put on here, to be honest. It could be pretty much anything that feels good to you. Probably not Avenger. Avenger doesn't affect abilities because Void damage has like a super low negative crit chance for some reason. It's pretty crazy. That's something that people have figured out with Zada's Whisper. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not even gonna worry about it right now. I mean, you'll see. We don't even need to worry about having an extra arcane on here. It's not necessary. So this is gonna seem weird, but when we get it in practice with everything going, you'll understand. Having even more having an even lower chance to get hit by enemies just stacked on top of each other over and over again means you have to use Condemned less often, which is really nice. Alternatively, even if you're not using Condemned, you can also do essentially the exact same build just with Xaku's base abilities if you don't have Condemned or you don't want to use it and you want to utilize Zada. Well, here you go. Like I said, hitting enemies with Void status is going to prevent them from being able to shoot you because of the bullet attractors placed on them. And if you're also utilizing the Carapace mod set, you're going to have an even lower chance of getting hit in the first place if enemies even get the chance to shoot at you. The only reason that we are worried about survivability at all, by the way, is because Grasp of Loke does not have status chance. It's 0. If Grasp of Loke could apply Void status, then it's just game over. Nobody would ever be able to shoot you. It would be hilariously powerful. So if you want to use Void status, you can do this. If you want to just use shields and rely on strong shield gating to basically push yourself indefinitely because you have invulnerability, you can use Condemn. It's the same build either way. It's just based on personal preference, really. Now, importantly, about the Carapace mods, the other ones are secondary and melee based. So I'm really just using the Piranha here because I actually already had this Carnus Stinger mod slotted in on here for the higher slash damage and status chance. Well, it's actually pretty solid, and if you use it on the Warframe that has armor shipping, the Piranha is actually a pretty solid weapon. And then the Titron is my go-to heavy weapon, so I just made a separate build on here where I can slot in Carnus Mandible. Not because it uses slash damage, but hey, it's already so damn powerful anyways, I could care less. This is all just here to get the extra set bonus. So that's all well and good. That's all a lot of fun. As far as the Archon shards go, I would definitely suggest having a max energy shard and a energy on spawn shard, the amber one. Reason being, obviously, we're not using primed flow. Xaku Prime does have a slight increase in base energy, which is very nice overall. With just the one Tau Forged Azure shard, we're up to over 300 energy. And since we're just running base power strength, that's 3 casts of Vast Untime, which you're never going to go through all that energy just using that ability. You're going to be getting kills all the time, getting energy pickups and getting health pickups with Equilibrium. That's all very nice. These are the only two that I would recommend, the max energy on spawn and the overall energy max. I have casting speed on here, which is just nice for the Vast Untime and Condemn. The thing about Vast Untime, and like I said before, it is almost infinite duration on your other abilities. The reason it's not completely is because although you can recast the Vast Untime when you do so, it is technically deactivated when you first hit the button until the actual ability cast happens. At base, this is half a second. So every time you have to recast the Vast Untime, you lose half a second on Xaku's active abilities. This shortens that a little bit. It also just makes Condemn come out more instantly when you cast it, which makes it easier to just rebuild your shields and be constantly shield gating. It feels good. It's not necessary. Finally, since we don't need a ton of power strength on Xaku with damage scaling on Grasp of Loke, I decided to go for some duration shards as well to just make things a little bit more cozy. I had originally, while polarizing him, was using Augur Message for extra duration. This is nearly 150% even using Transient Fortitude, so it feels nice. Now, there was one other build that I promised I was going to show you, and it is very specific to Xaku. This is using Golden Instinct, which is the level 15 ability that you unlock through leveling up your Helminth. This is the ability that allows you to seek out rare items in missions. This is the one that you want to use if you're going to go hunting for lots of Ayatan sculptures, or if you want to try and go through a mission to pick up lots of Syndicate medallions, or like picking up Void Plumes on the Zeramin, or picking up the other drops in the Sanctum. This is what you would use for that. The reason this works so well on Xaku as a loot frame is because the Vast Untime, it does deal damage in a burst. It has that 70-meter range at max range, and it has damage that it deals to enemies and boxes. And what's even better than that is that the Vast Untime goes through walls. So you could run around any mission you want, just spamming the Vast Untime, blowing up all the boxes that get anywhere near you, vacuuming them all up with your companion, and throwing out Golden Instinct to look for all the rare items that you actually want. So you can collect lots of resources, bring along a companion that boosts your resource gathering, use Golden Instinct to help find the rare stuff more easily, and we have a build here that is just focused on max range and max efficiency. We are only using this for loot. We're not using this for killing. Grab a good gun. But let's be honest, you're probably going to be doing these sorts of things on regular missions anyways, not on Steel Path, because Steel Path doesn't increase how many rare items you get from missions if you're looking for rare items with Golden Instinct. We're not too worried about it. You still have the usual damage avoidance with Vast Untime and the passive, so Just use max efficiency to be able to spam vast on time whenever you want, max range to hit everything, bring some good guns, and you can just clear out a mission of all of its resources in no time at all. This is kind of just fill in the other slots as you see fit. Obviously, we got space for loot detector. I put in the funny arcanes that nobody ever uses just to make the build even simpler. Not that it's going to matter that much. This is really, like I said, it's for loot. Don't take it too seriously. It's for loot. It's not a big deal. This isn't a solo Necros loot farming build, so do with it what you will. We're going to use my preferred version of Xaku, utilizing Condemn. We're going to go murder stuff with the Titron. We're going to watch these floaty guns just demolish everything for us. It's going to be great. It's going to be so fun. I love this Warframe. So obviously I have the new Prime weapons as well. I'm very excited for the Trumna Prime because I already had a Ribbon for it ready to go. The Quasis is looking really good. I'm working on both of those. I wanted to do Xaku first. I wanted to get this out right away. You can let me know if you want me to make a video talking about the Trumna and the Quasis. I'll happily do that. I'm going to work on those after I'm done with this. So, we have enough max energy at the start that when we start the mission, we can activate Vast on Time. No, never mind. You know what? I goofed. That's my bad. I goofed on the energy number. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to get Vast on Time active. And obviously this doesn't look very impressive right now. We don't have max guns. We don't have enemies. We don't have an enemy locked down to provide armor shipping. I need to get a little bit more energy first to do all that. So we're going to find a better room first. One's got a few more angles to it so we can actually get some more Grineer coming at us. Yeah, this will work. We gotta swap over to Gaze on the third ability. We're going to lock you down, and now we have this big, bright blue 70-meter radius of defense reduction. Lost our shields, just pop that again to reactivate, and we're sitting pretty. And we got to get our power strength built up in order to get that full defense reduction. Obviously, this doesn't look this is not doing a ton of damage without max defense reduction, which is why I like having all that power strength dumped into it. We're going to have to get another enemy locked down as we get more power strength built up with Molt Augmented. I want this to be a video just on using the Arca Titron, but I got to get power strength built up first. That's the only downside of relying on Molt Augmented. If you want the really crazy stuff to happen, you got to get it all built up first, and it does take a little bit of time. All the more reason to have a good heavy weapon to pair with the mod set. Alright, how are we looking now? Yeah, we're getting there. And nothing else, you're seeing right now how easily Xaku can stay alive with all of this damage avoidance and shield gating when he does actually get hit. Are we doing any better? Yeah, we're almost there. Got a few hits taken there. Now, obviously, once we get more power strength built up with Molt Augmented, we actually do want to recast Grasp of Loke to get even more damage going through that. So I'm just going to do this. Here's another funny thing about Xaku, since his weapons are just automatically attacking for you. You can go on your operator and it'll just keep shooting. Not that that's the most useful thing in the world, but you certainly can. These guys over here aren't even actually in the radius yet, and they're still just dropping dead. I need to pay a little more attention to my timers. It's super easy to keep Xaku's abilities active, you just gotta pay attention to your timers, and I'm not doing that. Alright, well, it seems like I might have done my numbers wrong a little bit. We're not actually reaching complete damage reduction with Gaze, but... And you can see with the shield icons next to them how low they are. It's not going to make that much of a difference if we go complete defense reduction on them, so... Oh, there goes that Guardian. So here's the thing. If you compare Xaku to Warframes like Saren or Varuna with her newest augment, I know it's not the craziest thing to look at. I know we're not looking like at the entire minimap up in the corner just being deleted of all red every time I push a button. Xaku is powerful because his abilities are capable of scaling damage with the enemies that you're fighting. A build like this, you're going to have the ability to push this really, really far into pretty much any type of mission that you want to, because you're going to keep increasing your damage as the enemies get stronger. And if we're utilizing shield gating with Condemn, you're banking on invulnerability for survivability, which is much better than banking on most other forms of survivability. Combining that with the fact that we are able to just avoid lots of damage on Xaku. You can see quite the difference between when we have armor stripping and when we don't on this. Alright, I think that's good enough for now. A build like this makes Xaku very easy to use. It can be a little bit intimidating to look at since he's kind of a very different Warframe from most of the other ones that we have. We don't really have any Warframes that have a sort of auto-turret ability to just steal weapons and use them against their enemies, which is pretty neat. And we definitely don't have any other Warframes that have high chance of just avoiding damage. If there was a way to increase that even further other than just using set mods, Xaku could be super powerful and actually focus on other things, but as it stands, you definitely need a way to be able to boost up your survivability when you do get hit, because you're going to get hit. So there you go. I think the Xaku is a lot of fun. I think that some people are going to be turned off by the fact that he doesn't just immediately delete a room of enemies that he walks into. Understandable. That's definitely fun to do. That's very useful. Having extremely high KPM for certain missions is great. The thing that you don't get with some other Warframes is the damage scaling. And obviously you don't get void damage. Xaku has some flexibility. You don't have to build him exactly the way I did, but I think that this is the best way to play him, utilizing Grasp of Loke. If you're going to go for him, you might as well experiment, have some fun, try things out. You don't know how nice it is to have a Warframe that just has auto turrets all around him attacking enemies for you until you experience it for yourself. So, there you go. I hope you enjoy Xaku, because I certainly do. I'm going to be using him a lot in the coming days.